Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. This channel features lengthy off-limits conversations with various different artists and entrepreneurs, predominantly from the underground metal scene. We take deep dives into the topics of life, music, spirituality, and take insight from a variety of thought-provoking perspectives from personalities who you don't often hear from in a mainstream settings. I am your host, Cheyenne, and I was originally born and raised in Iran and currently reside in the UK. I am the frontman and founding member of the black death metal band Trivex, who have been active since 2009. The band originally started in the Islamic Republic of Iran, where such type of music is banned as well as a punishable offense. You can check the band's pages for any updates on tour dates as well as new music. I am also a personal trainer and an online fitness coach who specializes in people achieving the best versions of themselves physically and mentally. Having been someone who was once extremely out of shape and overweight, I find it to be my duty to be able to pass on the information and knowledge which I've gained to help others achieve the same transformation. The Iblis Manifestations Podcast also features a variety of solo episodes where I discuss personal experiences and anecdotes in a very candid fashion, covering everything from mental health, spirituality, philosophy, and even paranormal experiences. This is the Iblis Manifestations Podcast. To support it, be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the link in the descriptions.
It's great talking to you, Cheyenne, really. And best of luck to your endeavors for this podcast. I think it's a great initiative.
You're my favorite person to talk to for interviews and stuff. So I love what you're espousing out here. I love the knowledge and the perspectives that you're curating through this, and I'm just so honored to be a part of it. Thank you.
As I told you, it was one of the most interesting interviews I've ever had, because we talk a lot more things than just music, and I really appreciated that.
I respect you deeply, and it's an honor to be here.
And friends, remember as always, better to die on your feet than to live on your knees. Enjoy the podcast. Okay, Simon, sir, it's a real pleasure to have you on this afternoon. How the hell are you doing?
It's great to speak to you again, man. You good?
Yeah, great. I'm sure that you will probably agree with me in saying that this is probably long overdue for us to sit down and have this conversation.
I'd have thought so, yeah. Without a doubt.
Absolutely,
I'm
man.
going to have to get rid of this Egypt. He keeps following me. I don't know who he is. Go on, off you go.
There we go. What's his name?
Toby.
He's
He's what's called a cocker jack. So he's a cocker spaniel mixed with a Jack Russell. So just think of the two worst dogs you could possibly have in house, and it's one of them.
There we go. That's amazing, man. How old is he?
3. He'd be lucky if he makes it to 4. The way, what was it? He chewed up a pair of my shoes the other day. So he'll be lucky if he makes 4. But yeah, he's a good boy. He's all right.
That's amazing, man. Well, listen, first of all, I'm very grateful for your time and agreeing to be on the podcast. You know, I do appreciate it. You know, you obviously, we've had the pleasure of playing Bloodstock thanks to yourself. Once with Trivex, but I've also appeared a couple of times with other bands, doing session work and whatnot as well.
It was a pleasant surprise seeing you this last August when you were stood on the main stage when I walked on. I was like, all right, hello.
Yeah.
Hello again.
I'm kind of like, I'm the bug that like never goes away, So yeah, that was a great one actually, because I didn't even know I was doing that until like 2 weeks before, and then Andy from Deities called me up, because I was doing session work for them before. Then I sort of left the band. Then he called me back up again and was like, "Hey, can you do this gig?" I was like, "Go on." Then twisted my arm, Bloodstock main stage. Why the fuck not?
Man.
There we go.
Yeah, it was good, man. It was very, very good. It was good to book Deities. It's a good band. not
Yeah,
seen quite some
yeah.
time. So yeah.
Yeah, I think for UK black metal, I think there's a lot of great bands actually coming up now. They're like there's a select few of them, and they're all kind of like different to one another, but then they all have like qualities of their own to offer, and I think Datus is certainly one of them, and I was more than happy to help him out on that occasion. Just as a general question, because I've been meaning to talk to you about this, because it's kind of like all over online, and I haven't had the chance to talk about this on the podcast yet. What were your thoughts on the Black Sabbath announcements for July? What are you thinking on that?
I'm so torn. I am genuinely torn because I'm that old. I managed to see them when they were really, really good, right. Back in the day. And I've seen them in all their carnations. I saw them with Dio. I've seen them with Ozzy. I've seen them with Ray Gillan. Do you remember Ray Gillan?
Right.
Ray Gillan was singing for him as well. I managed to see him on that tour. So I've seen them in different formats, and I saw the original reunion tour, which was great, and then I saw the End of the Road tour, and then the second End of the Road tour, and now this one's a bit special in regards of like Bill Ward's been asked back. That for me is great.
Yeah,
but I just wonder if you look at the state of Ozzy now. I don't know. I don't know. For charity, great, love that. Love that aspect of it. And I love the fact that people like Jakey Lee are back on board, that they might get to play with Ozzy again. But again, I love Ozzy so much that I just don't know I want to see him sort of sat there in a chair because he can't walk. The guy can't walk. And I don't know. You know what it is at the moment? I'm going through this really horrible period. I seem to be watching legacy bands all the time. I'm going to watch Fish's final tour. I saw Magnum's final show the other day. Who else have I seen? Deep Purple's final show, and it's like, hold on a minute, I don't want them to end. So Sabbath, I don't know. I don't know if I get chance to go, I will, simply out of curiosity. Although the fact that the bands on the undercard are only playing like 2 songs, one of which isn't one of their own, they're playing a Sabbath cover. Don't know. It's going to be an odd one. It is an odd one, but the lineup's just bloody ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So, I'm really yin and yang. There's a lot of me that would love to see Sabbath one final time, but there's a big part of me that's like, do I really want to see him in the state that they're in? I mean, what sort of state's Bill Ward in now? Christ, we've not seen him online, let alone anything else, for some time, but Sabbath is Sabbath, isn't it? So,
yeah.
Undoubtedly, I'll probably, if I can get the money together, then I'll be there.
Well, that's the other
way around of saying yes, I will be going.
Sure. Well, that's the other thing, is getting the money together for it. Yeah. But I also think that, personally, I'm actually not too bothered by that part of it, because I think that it is, like you said, is for a good cause at least.
It is. That's a big part of it, yeah.
For
if
sure.
It was the case that Ticketmaster and Live Nation were fleecing and sort of putting dynamic pricing on it, then I wouldn't touch it with a barge pole. I really wouldn't. But the fact that it's going to Birmingham charities, being born and bred in Birmingham, then,
Well, that's another reason why I asked you, because I know you're a Birmingham native, and I know that you're kind of in the heart and soul of that scene there, which basically is the scene that birthed heavy metal, I mean, that's what was so cool for me coming out of Iran, where you can't play metal to literally the fucking home of it, and, seeing on Broad Street, seeing the stars on the floor, and then the Sabbath bench and all of that. For me, that was like, because I moved here just before I turned 17. I came on my own and went straight to Birmingham, and it was fucking surreal, I mean, my only complaint at the time was that I was a massive metal elitist, and that was the time when deathcore was a real thing, so coming over and seeing all the bands with like full sentences for names and all the kids with stretched out ears. I wasn't too sure about that part, but
not only that, the fact is, I remember Metal to you talking about the deathcore scene. I remember Metal to the Masses when I was doing the finals up and down the country. I swear to God, if there was 5 bands in a final, you would always get at least 2.
Yeah.
You could set your watch to it. It was verse, chorus, breakdown, verse, chorus, out. Every single time. And it was like, come on, guys, get a grip. It's just too much.
Yeah, for sure. And that was kind of like the part of the trend that I was kind of like, you know, that was actually a little weird for me. I was like, come on, man, this is the home of metal. You know, I expect like a little bit more. But then at the same time, then you would go to Scruffy Murphy's and then you'd have Napalm Death like having a pint. It's like this fucking like, you know, like literally like I just walked straight into a dream, you know, like it was crazy. But I actually got to see that first Sabbath reunion back in May 2012. That was like one of the first shows I ever went to. And don't ask me how I managed to get the money together for the tickets for that one, but that was at the O2 Academy, and just seeing those guys on stage, you know, and that's when Ozzy could still obviously move and sing.
Was that the warm-up show for Download, is that right?
Exactly, yes.
I was there.
Yeah.
That was real, because it was a small venue, or it seemed like a really small venue for Sabbath.
For Sabbath,
It was just right. It was like being transported back to the 70s and you were seeing them in the club. It was badass. It was a really good show, that was.
It was crazy. I mean, that left such a fucking impression on me. And I was obviously on my own there, you know, because I moved here on my own. But I went to the show and I kind of made it to the front row. Barely managed to survive for like the first half of the set, staying around that sort of vicinity, you know, because that was before I started picking up the weights. But, you know, it was just like, you know, Ozzy coming onto stage and then just like staring down at me, like eye contact, you know. I mean, it was just like a pure moment of madness, but like beautiful chaos. You know, I was just like fucking so hooked by.
He's always struck me as one of the most honest frontmen out there. I mean, I'm not going to lie, Ozzy kind of got me through, especially when he was playing with like, you know, Jakey Lee and playing with Randy. That sort of time period was when I was, you know, a vulnerable teenager that was trying to find his way and trying to get his head straight. And I'd say Ozzy's music was vital. It was absolutely vital, you know, and, you know, I've got a lot to thank the guy for. And, you know, I've seen them numerous times in different guises. And sort of Ozzy as a front man has always been one of those guys that, you know, I've always just walked out with that. Just walked out with a massive smile on my face and just thought, he gave it everything. He looked like he was enjoying it, you know, and that again. I've always appreciated that. If you see a band's enjoying that, I mean, you know, all right, black metal aside, you know, they're paid not to look fucking happy, deliberate.
I like to defy against that actually.
Good man.
But I think you make a really good point about him being honest, because I think even way back then, you know, I mean, for his solo stuff, I think just some of the lyrics and everything, even with songs that weren't like necessarily personal, like Mr. Crowley, you know, there's still like a real emotional edge to that you can connect to, you know? Yeah. So I think it'll be interesting seeing him perform, but you know, I think I'm in the same school of thought as yourself regarding this show, because, you know, on one hand, it's kind of like, well, we already thought we saw the last of Sabbath, so to see it again, that would be really something, especially with Bill Ward. I think that's the huge part, because
that's the big key for me. That's the big key. Was I don't know. I always got this vibe that Bill was always treated badly. And I always felt bad about Ozzy being sacked. The amount of stuff I've read about Bill really took it badly and sort of, you know, hit the skids pretty much straight out. Is it Technical Ecstasy or Never Say Die, one of those albums? He can't remember recording it. He was just so off his head. You know, he's just like, but that was a bad time in his life, because that's when Ozzy, you know, was failing the band, if you like, and becoming bigger than the band, and like, I don't know. I think it affected him. So to see him back in the fold all these years later, I think, yeah, that's going to be big. That's going to be big.
Well, that was the thing that to me was kind of missing from all the reunion shows, was the fact that he just wasn't there, you know. And when you're saying, he wasn't treated very well, I mean, you know, for anyone listening who doesn't know, I mean, they literally set him on fire back in the day, you know.
Apparently it wasn't Geezer so much, but Tony and Ozzy were just rife with just, practical jokes and to the extent of setting him on fire. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was like with like a spray can or something like that. They got gold paint on him and then they set him on fire afterwards.
I mean, those were the days when throwing, televisions out of hotel rooms was just a week in, week out. Now look at us. We're all on Perrier water,
I know, yeah. I've got a protein coffee here. There we go. That's it. I couldn't get more pretentious than that.
No, you got to keep the protein and the electrolytes going in, dude. Fucking hell.
There we go. Health matters. But no, I think it'll be good. But there's another part of me that kind of feels like a little bit, almost kind of morbid about it, where it feels like the charity thing, which again is a great cause, but also the fact that, like all of these other bands, it's almost like a kind of a blanket in case Ozzy doesn't even make it, Like,
I mean, you can't have bands like Slayer and Metallica on that bill unless they're a safety net.
Yeah.
I mean, because punters will, they're forking out nigh on 200 quid for the cheap seats, if you like.
Yeah.
And if Sabbath don't, or Ozzy doesn't turn up for ill health or whatever, then yes, they'll be upset. But the fact of the matter is they will have a counterfoil of having two of the biggest bands on the planet in Metallica and Slayer, so.
Exactly. And Pantera as well. I assume you probably have mixed feelings about that one too?
Look, I'm going in a couple of weeks to the NBC. Yeah.
Okay.
I have to differentiate at times my thoughts on the guy and my thoughts on the music because he royally, whether he says it was unintentional, which is absolute horseshit really, because at the end of the day you look at the video, it's pretty open, it's an open book, that one. But the fact is I have to push that aside with the fact that Pantera kicked royal fucking ass back in the day, and I've seen the video footage. Zach is doing such a stand-up job, and Charlie. Yeah. It's great, and I love those songs. So I'm not going to deprive myself, and I'm definitely going to go there. I get people's reticence with Phil. I get it, but I personally don't think there's any harm in the guy. I just think he's a fucking idiot. But hey, aren't we all? Aren't we all?
Yeah, I have, because obviously a lot of the guests that I've had on the show, it's not exclusively been the case at all, but black metal is usually a genre that, for better or worse, the conversation of do you separate the art from the artist comes up a little bit more often,
Yeah.
And, and that's something that we've talked about on here quite a lot, and I think that at the end of the day, it's not like he's going on stage and then through the medium of the band preaching certain things and then saying, oh, you should go do this, you should go do that. Now you can't step inside someone's brain and then say, oh, fuck's sake, why do you think this way? And at the end of the day, no one really knows what people think either. You know what I mean? There are people who go online and spout things all the time, but then to themselves in their personal life, they still think differently than what they project outwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it really does. It really does. Yeah.
So it's always like kind of like a bit of a tricky thing for me as well, and I think at the end of it usually comes down to, you've got the option of you get to either tune in or not tune in, and I think it's as simple as that, really, and people get to decide that for themselves.
You know what? It's probably a bit early in the conversation to come into this, but the fact is, how do I go about this? Okay, the fact is, I'm taking a breath because I am, a spokesperson for Bloodstock Open Air, but I'm also a free-thinking person. The fact is, this whole, we're going to use I hate this fucking expression, the woke agenda, okay? This whole woke agenda, it started out with all the best intentions, and I was adamantly behind it in regards to the fact it protected people, it gave people a voice, it looked out for minorities that didn't quite, have the voice that they warrant. However, it went so far that way that it went stupid.
Mhm.
It got fucking stupid. And now I see this sort of kickback, which isn't necessarily a right-wing thing, but it is a kickback to say, let's use, and then people like Trump fucking hijack it and use the expression common sense. But he's not using common sense because he's so far the other way. Do you see what I'm saying? There's such a bloody blurred view of this whole thing. And to try and navigate through it, Bill was wrong. Bill was an idiot. But like you say, is that really what he thinks in his heart of hearts? I mean, he was born and bred in New Orleans, which is a place that's surrounded by artists and blacks, and and I can't see that was part of it. I mean, his mother was she was dating a dancer. She was part of a dance troupe as well, and all this lot. I can't see that correlates with him having those sort of stupid ass views. Do you know what I mean? And this is where I find it so blurring now. That, like, the fact is, I want to go and see Pantera, but I look online and people are suggesting I shouldn't. And I'm like, yeah, but I think for myself, I think for myself, I've got absolutely no, let alone right-wing tendencies, no Nazi tendencies, no fucking, anything like that. But I love Pantera. I absolutely adore the music. And it the vitriol and the sort of the online garbage that comes with it it's hard to navigate sometimes. And as somebody that's just been as honest as a day is long from day one, the fact is I do find it quite depressing to try and navigate through all this crap when all you want to do is just, if I had hair, I'd let it down and just have a good fucking time, but I don't know. It's a weird one. It is a weird one. Christ, that was early in the conversation for that, wasn't it? Sorry.
Well, this is the right place for it. And if there's one thing I can say to you, man, you are 100% preaching to the choir right now. Because 100%. Because
I find it really difficult to open up that conversation, although myself and my wife have it at the breakfast table every fucking day, because every day you hear something in the news that is just it's going so badly. It's going the wrong way so fucking quickly. And people seem desensitized to the horror of what is actually going on, whether it be on a political footing, whether it be on a destruction of the arts footing, whatever it may be. They seem so desensitized because they're so used to the noise. And it's, if people have got to speak up and just go, actually, hold on a minute, use common sense. And I just hate the fact that Trump's now, hijack that as well. Fucking hell.
Well, the fact that, listen, man, you're 100% on the money with that. The fact that, like you put it, the quote unquote woke agenda, or the mind virus, as those guys call it, has given so much ammunition that you can come out and say, oh, I will declare there are only two genders, and then be applauded by the rest of the world. Many of those people who are applauding aren't right wing, by the way, as you pointed out, which is correct. That shows you how far things went, when it's like, that it didn't need to go that far, And my sort of perspective on this, which is always a leverage that I can use in the conversation, because it's something that I've lived through, is I happen to come from extreme right-wing totalitarian country, which is Iran. Okay, it's a country that is modernized in the sense of science and many other aspects of it. But culturally, because of the religious stronghold, particularly Islam, which is, it's quite an extreme religion, and a lot of people are kind of uneducated about it, so they see it as one thing, but actually I've lived with it. So I know a thing or two more about the religion than a lot of people do. The problem is that, mixing religion with politics and your policies, is the same as, I've always said this, is the same as grabbing a menthol pill and then just dropping it in a bottle of Coke, and then it just like fucking, it's It's just a shit combo. So, I've grown up there. I've lived through actual censorship, like I've had friends of ours who tried to play shows and then they all got arrested and pepper sprayed for it. They smashed their instruments to pieces, forced them to cut their hair. And there are numerous examples of that. I've been chased by the police myself. The very first Trivax show that we ever played in Iran was at this underground amphitheater at this school, and we lied to the school and we told them we were going to do a program to celebrate the Islamic Revolution, and it was actually, we're just coming up to the 14-year anniversary of it. I think it was 10th of February 2010. 2011, if I'm not mistaken. And at the end of that show, they set the kids got so fucking wild, they set the school on fire. And when I saw the smoke coming in, I thought it was the police breaking in. But anyway, long story short, yeah, we managed to get away. And that's my background, and I know what real censorship and what real totalitarianism looks like. And another thing on top of that, now here's the important part, is over there, if you're in an Islamic country like that, if you're a homosexual, if you actually come out as someone who is homosexual, or if you get caught for it, that's an instant death sentence, okay? So it's not like people will have some kind of just prejudice against you, or your family will disown you, which is still that's still a terrible thing, but they'll literally kill you for that, okay? And to me, as someone who has had friends I know friends and I know people over there who've been through that. And luckily my mother and both of my parents, they raised me to be quite open-minded about these things. Okay, so my mother, she was like a poet, she even made her own DIY book, an audio book, and it's all in English, stuff that she wrote since she was like 16 years old, and this is, you have to put this in the context of Iran as well. It's quite a very open-minded person to do something like that, especially for a woman, by the way.
Very brave, man.
That also, for sure. I think it's kind of like when you're there, interestingly enough, her and I had a conversation about this recently. It's kind of like when you're there, you just want to make your art. You just want to do your thing. You don't think that, it's going to go against so-and-so, whatever, and that backlash is something that comes later, which both her and I have experienced on multiple levels. But, the thing of it at the end of the day is that I champion those rights. I champion for people to have the right to be with whoever the fuck they want to be, to identify as whatever the fuck they want to do. That's not my business, and it certainly shouldn't be the government's fucking business either.
Amen.
Regardless of.
Yeah, I think that's where this whole thing over the last sort of 10 years, and probably based around the internet, sort of, having its way of giving a voice to, how do we say it? Okay, let's start from let's talk about the transgender thing. Mm-hmm. How terrible must it be for a kid to be born into a body that they know isn't theirs? That whole transgender debate with regards to that, it's soulful. It's a terrible thing, and I would do anything to sort of protect and nurture and give guidance and help and whatever to a kid in that regard. But then when it's taken to the extreme, and I identify as a fucking locomotive train, fuck you, just killed the fucking, just killed it. You've just killed the conversation. And that's 100%. What I'm saying. It's just gone so far to one way that it's given rise to the other side. And it's a shame. It's a crying shame. But, is it a case that we're watching this and it levels itself out? And, in the end, we have a utopia of understanding and, everybody gets everybody in the end? Kind of, I doubt it.
Yeah, because the only way to get to that is through open discourse, open conversation. Oh, so you think differently to I do? Okay, why do you think differently to I do? No, oh, you're a Nazi then. You're a flat earther.
The thing is, Shay, it's about having the ability and the brain recourse to go, you know what, you might be right.
Yeah.
You don't hear people say that anymore. Even if you hear these two-way conversations on radio or TV interviews, there's nobody goes, you might have a point. You mean, let me take that away. Let me think about it and let me get back. You never get that. It's so binary now. I'm a Tory. I'm Labour. I'm right wing. I'm left wing. It's like, okay, keep labeling yourself until the cows come home. But at the end of the day, you've got to be able to go, I think I'm wrong on that one. Let me, and that's the only way we're going to, better ourselves as humans, I guess. I don't know.
Absolutely. Listen, I am very much of that same school of thought. To me, the thing that ultimately matters the most is just being able to have the freedom to think and believe what you believe in, and then not necessarily be in a situation to impose it on others. And I think that's kind of, and unfortunately, it's we live in an era of politics of emotions and politics of force. Okay, and people are very good to follow that pendulum, and this is so. Why did I bring up the the gay rights example? Is because we actually did a really good podcast recently with my friends Jackie Smith and Jerry Kuronen from the Router Show, and a point that I made on there was that. When you push things so far back, you're actually regressing on the progression of some of these rights that people have had to risk their lives for hundreds of years, if not longer. And then you can kind of seeing that now. People are like, well, I get called a fascist or whatever, even if I'm not, so I may as well go onto this side. Now that's not a great way of thinking either, but you can understand why so many people are kind of going with that as well. And
it's almost like a safety net. Okay, sure. Well, if you're going to call me that, I might as well stay over here because I know I've got,
that's it.
Yeah.
And the thing that a lot of people ought to remember is that, I think you and I, perhaps because we're metalheads, perhaps because we kind of have that understanding and that intuitiveness that this music is kind of gifted us, because you got to be different people, we're not the average person who, we might coexist with society in the bigger world, but we're not your average person, that's why we flock to this music, now, even if we have different backgrounds, our interest is for a mutual purpose, which is to enjoy the music. Like you said, neither of us have any hair, but let the hair down and and be able to enjoy it. You know
what? As well, that I think that there's a certain amount of, I think there's bravery as well in being. Obviously, I work with young musicians. I love seeing that 15, 16, 17-year-old kid get up there, do their first, their second, their third show, feel like rock stars, get it all wrong. But you know what? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because they're playing to an audience. They're getting that vibe. They're learning their skills. They're becoming, a viable musician. I love that, and I think that if you give that sort of ability to express yourself, whether it be through music or word or poetry or the arts or just in self-expression, if you give someone that ability to do that, they become a better person. End of story. And I think so long as you try and stifle that, we're in a bad place. You've got to allow people to be self-expressive, in whatever form it is, because out of it comes learning, out of it comes mistakes, out of it comes a better understanding of who you are as a person, and that for me is something that, obviously I'm looking at it, from a sort of musical point of view, working with these young artists. It's so inspiring to see that happen and to see them sort of want to learn, and that in society, if we could encapsulate that and just launch it out there into society as just an ethos in how we go about life, is to learn and to embrace, to disagree and then understand, then we'd all be, Christ, I'm some sort of utopian hippie, right? But ever is it going to be the way? I'm that age, man.
Listen, I fucking love that, and I'm going to tell you why. one of the things that I discussed early on this podcast, and by the way, I'm glad that you mentioned the young musicians and everyone that you work with, because I did want to sort of segue into that in the conversation anyway.
Yeah, sure.
I guess you kind of did that brilliantly yourself. You should do these more often, I think.
very much doubt it was brilliant, but yeah, I try.
Yeah, that's the perfect British response. But one thing,
understated. Yeah, go on.
absolutely, yes. And one thing that I kind of realized early on as well, because for me, let's say when we were first starting out with Trivex, I was very extremely critical of everyone and everything else who was a band or a musician. Part of this is because I felt that way towards myself. Now, you will notice the people who are kind of most successful, you look at your Steve Harrises of the world, those people are they don't come out and, they don't start criticizing other people. They're just focused on their own thing, They're actually pretty cool, and he's someone that I know, I've heard stories, will just go and watch another band perform, and that's
Correct.
normal to him.
Yeah.
And why do I think that's an important example to bring up is because over the years, as I kind of matured a lot personally, I've been through a lot of my own personal journeys, a lot of extreme ups and downs in the last 5 to 10 years since I've been in the UK. And the things that I kind of learned at the end of it was, you got to kind of look at music a little bit from the outside, almost be able to pull yourself out of it, pull yourself out of the industry aspect and who's getting how many stream numbers or how many ticket sales. Oh no, fuck that. Just if you bring yourself out of it. And the thing that I kind of learned was that why is it good for people to just go, if you're a musician, just go release an album, just go fucking do it. Why is that good? Because I noticed that the more I did it, the more I learned about myself.
Yeah, correct.
Absolutely. when you write your lyrics down on a piece of paper, when you write some riffs in your own solitude, and then when you eventually have the opportunity, hopefully, to take that on a stage in front of a bunch of people and perform it, the more you do that, the more you kind of get met with this reflection of who you really are, your dark side, but also your strengths and your things that you can sort of capitalize on in life. And it's a process of growth. And I think that having that opportunity in life is extremely crucial, dare to fail. If you're going to fuck up, doesn't matter. Yeah. If you play in front of a bunch of people and if your fucking cable comes out and then someone laughs at you, that's okay. Take it on the chin and move on. Just do better next time. And this way you'll only improve.
The school of hard yards. Absolutely right. It's a story for you. So you're saying about how it makes you grow. So the year would be 2007, the year that Sophie Lancaster died. Was killed. I remember sitting there with my very young daughter at the time, and she couldn't process it. I couldn't fucking process it. It was one of those things. And my band at the time, Beholder, we were looking at writing original material, and I wrote a track called "Never Take Us Down." Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm brutally honest with myself, it's not the best lyric I ever wrote. It's not the most, sort of proggy tune I've ever written. However, for it years later, for it to sort of come to my knowledge that it was being used in the UN, the Sophie Lancaster Foundation took it to the UN, and they played it in schools up and down the country at all these seminars. That's something that out of all of this music industry, everything I've done, booking bands from Opeth down to whoever, that is the one thing that resonates with me every single week of the year. Because at some point I'll think about that and go, you know what? You've done something from a moment of very introspective solitude of going, how the hell can that happen? To write a lyric about it. Sat here, and nowhere else, and it's very introspective, very much you, for then to sort of be listened to by kids up and down the country in the Court of Human Rights at the UN and stuff like that. That for me is something that that is why these moments of ability to express yourself and put it down on paper, put it down in music, put it down in the arts, put it down in a theatrical performance, however you've got to do it, however you express yourself, for the love of Stan, just do it. Just do it. You know, everybody should have an opportunity during their lives to do something along those lines, to be themselves and to be expressive, you know, and because out of it will herald moments of, you know, even if they're very tiny, very sort of introspective moments, the fact is they are moments of beauty, and you've got to search for that. Oh, you really do.
Absolutely. First of all, I mean, that's amazing that the lyrics made it that far. Because if I'm correct, I don't think you ever even officially released the lyrics to that EP.
It came out on an EP way back in the day. But
2008, right?
2008. Yeah, I think we must have released about 100 copies of that EP, and that was it. So.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing, man. You know, and I guess it's a testament to that honesty. You know, you were talking about like Ozzy's honesty, you know, and then the honesty that you find in music. You know, I think it's a real testament to that. And you know, I'm actually really glad that you brought her up. I was wondering if that would happen at some point in this conversation. You know, because I think it's a really important thing. It's an extremely tragic thing that happened, first of all.
Yeah,
I actually discovered about it through Bloodstock, you know, in the first year.
Did you?
Yeah, through the first year that I was in the UK, which was 2011, you know, and actually the first festival I ever attended was Bloodstock 2012. I'm pretty sure I watched you perform at that one as well, if I'm not mistaken. Either that one or 2013. I remember watching Beholder there.
Something along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, that's
right.
Well,
I was part of the booking team then, so we played every other year.
Okay. Of course. No, it was actually it's a great show, you know, like it was you know, I thought it was very good. You were on a very, you know, it was a good atmosphere, you know, and yeah, that's so just coming back to it, that's how I discovered about it, you know, because I obviously saw the name of the stage, and then I went and looked it up online, and I was like very distraught by reading that. Yeah. But the thing for me is that it hits home, and it literally hits home, you know, because of very similar instances that you know, that I have. Yeah, that I have come across, and it's like it is a bit of an emotional trigger, actually. You know, I'm concealing it well, but
I get it.
It's you know, like we all know what it's like to be different. You know, we all know what it's like that. You know, like I said earlier, if you remember, I think people like us, we coexist with the big society out there, with the big world of all the non-playable characters, you know, who care about their Gucci bags and whatever, you know. Yeah. And I think that, you know, there's this thing that I find is just so tragic in human nature, you know. It's that otherness, you know. And it's like, no, how about you try and find out and you try and learn who that person is? And I think it's very important for us to kind of remember that, hey, you know, we can't be like them either, you know. And I think part of what, going back to what we were saying earlier, where things maybe have gone wrong, is that maybe some of us have acted a little bit more like that, a little bit too much of the tribe mentality of, oh, that person said so and so, let's take them down.
You know, can't be like them, and nor should we have to try to have to be like them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And I think that obviously for me it's also a very personal thing because of some of the things that happened to the women in Iran, you know, including Mahsa Amini just 2.5 years ago. Yeah, it's still happening, you know. I've known people where it's happened to them, and that shouldn't be happening in today's world, you know. Like we're better than that, you know. But yeah, I think what at least Bloodstock does, and I think what you guys do, is, even though it was a tragic event, I do think that there is a real positive light to it, you know, that perhaps a lot of people get to come and have a space where at least they feel like they're not maybe so different from everyone else in that space. And I think that's quite an important thing.
Yeah, it certainly is for the festival. Sort of safe spaces for using the obviously the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, but we also have organisations like Mind. There, we're very much aware of the fact that Bloodstock it does seem to sort of create that sort of family vibe, but also that safe environment for people to just let it be and just I think one of the big things for me was 21 when we were the first festival to come back after COVID. We literally had weeks to get it together. We literally had weeks to get it together, and sort of bands were pinging every 5 minutes that they couldn't go because so and so had got COVID and blah 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 blah. But anyway, we opened the gates, and I was really concerned because I was like, "How are they going to be? How's everyone going to be?" Because I wasn't sure how I was going to be. I was really, really emotional the whole weekend, ridiculously so, quite embarrassingly so at times, But the fact is, I was like, are they going to come through the gates feral? Are they just going to go wild? Or are they going to be really reticent and really sort of... And it literally was the first day on the Thursday. Or was it the Wednesday or the Thursday? I can't remember now. And everyone was like, are you okay? Are you okay? Do you want a hug? And everyone was like, I don't know. And it was really, really fucking weird. But then come Friday morning, everybody had been drinking in the campsite all night, and everyone was up on their toes. And it's if you take that away from people, then it's hard for it to sort of re-emerge. And that's why I think this whole openness of, like, as you say, be who you need to be, and don't feel as though you have to drop into the box of being, that gang over there or that gang over there. Just be who you are. And that's why Bloodstock does open its doors, and it does seem like a safe place for 20-odd thousand people, and it's good to know. It is good to know.
Well, this is the thing, if you even want to just look at it statistically, one thing that I always keep coming back to, and I try and remind myself of this, I try and kick myself and remember to be more appreciative of this scene, even though I've basically given everything of my life to this music at this point, and with no complaints whatsoever. I did it for a reason, and the turnaround's been worth it in terms of life experiences, let's just say that, and character development. But one thing that I always say is we were doing a conference at Inferno Festival last year, and I said it to the crowd, because it was about like how podcasts are taking over media and stuff, but I made a point on stage and I said to everyone, I was like, look, just look around you. There's people everywhere, right? When you go to a festival, like you said, Bloodstock 21,000, which, by the way, I know it can be more than that, but that's just what the premises allow. It's a festival has potential to be way bigger than it is, even though it's already huge. But even then, let's say 21,000, okay? You look at that. Okay, what's that in terms of numbers? Now, what's that in terms of numbers when you actually compare that to the population of the entire country? It's a fraction.
Nothing.
There's very few of us who listen to this music. There's very few of us who can actually name songs, off of T-shirts. The name 3 songs thing. We are much more of a minority than we realize, and we need to preserve the rock and roll culture. Okay. Because no one else is going to do it for us. At the very least in Britain, I made a video about this during the second lockdown. So this was in November 2020. Because I was talking about an upcoming live stream that we were going to do. And I was saying that, look, the short of it was that doesn't matter what government's in power over here, they don't give a shit about your grassroots venues. They don't care about having them. All they want to do is just break down everything and build flats instead of it. Why? Because to them, they see the financial instant gratification of that. And that's what that's the only thing those politicians care about. Yeah. So we need to fight tooth and nail to preserve our culture. If we don't have the grassroots venues, then we are fucked, because then you're not going to have upcoming new venues that are going to be offering that opportunity to those bands to then come up. you said yourself earlier, sorry, this is a long rant, okay? Bear with me.
Good.
You said earlier that, you're experiencing this thing of just going to legacy tours and legacy shows right now. Okay, well, the only antidote to that is grassroots venues and bands finding their foothold and getting to express themselves, getting better at their craft, and eventually just spreading out and growing and getting better. Yeah. And if we don't have that, then you're not going to get that. You're not going to get a place where people like you and I could meet and connect and then sort of spread our network. So that's the thing that we need to protect. That's why when we did those live streams, we actually did a fundraiser, and we raised a bunch of money for some venues, one in Leeds, one in York, and another one in London. And I know charity is not the most black metal thing ever, but I really don't give a fuck about that. To me, the right and wrongs are much more appealing to me with my own moral compass. But to that point, I think what's extremely important right now is perhaps what you're doing with Metal to the Masses at the moment, because if I'm not mistaken, you're in 31 locations now, which now also includes Norway, Poland, and Poland, and Cyprus as well.
Norway, Cyprus.
Yeah, that's amazing, man. And I think that's people should look at that a little bit beneath the surface and actually understand that this is an act of cultural rejuvenation, if you will. Yeah. So I don't know what's your own thoughts on that.
Going back to what you said there about the venues, the fact is that I won an award at the Heavy Music Awards in London, and I used it as an opportunity to say, I think it's 27% of live music venues under 1,500 capacity have been lost in the last 5 years. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. But like you say, they either can't keep the doors open because of a lack of funding, a lack of punters through the door, or compulsory purchase orders. There's just a myriad of things happening to live music venues at that level, and we do need to protect it. And, this is something that fair play. And, this is why I tip my hat to Paul Gregory, because, as I say, literally, I took the mantle of the Metal to the Masses organizer in 2007, 2008. And I've taken it on ever since. I mean, there was literally 2 or 3 venues involved then. Now, as we say, there's sort of a revolving door of over 30 now, not only in the UK, but sort of in Cyprus, Poland, Norway, etc., Ireland, Northern Ireland. And it is literally, as much as it's about nurturing bands and giving them an opportunity to play at a major music festival, it's about supporting local promoters. It's about supporting the local venues. It's about, giving a chance to what is a very desperate situation right now, and it is getting more and more desperate. I don't know. Is it? Every time you see, this is the weird thing. It's a dichotomy, really, because the Metal to the Masses always sells out. It's always rammed. Yeah, it's always absolutely rammed. But you're following Saturday, and there's a band on, and you'll get 20, 30 people in there. And not necessarily supporting for the right reasons again. And it's, if I could take the battle element, if you like, out of the whole concept, I would. I'd take it out tomorrow, because it kind of doesn't really sit well with me. I know as a musician in a band, I would really struggle being in a competition, because your music's from there, right? It's and to throw it up on the stage, it's like I said earlier, bravery is the biggest thing for these guys and girls getting up there and doing it. But without that, it doesn't sort of create that community. And for some reason, it's worked so well, because we're back on it. Honesty, it's honest. When I took it on, there was these things don't exist anymore, so I don't care if I use the name. There was things like Surface Unsigned and these Battle of the Bands competitions, where it was all about how many people could get in there and text vote. It's like, fuck, really? But for me, it's been about, not necessarily so much now, but back in the early day, it was, I would get in a van, I would go to 20 odd regions up and down the country. I'd sleep in a fucking lay-by in the back of the van. And I would make sure that I not only represented Bloodstock as a face of, someone that's been a musician and someone that's done the road tours. I've done every toilet tour there is, and to actually go there and go, okay, there's 5 bands here, 4 of which are absolutely spot on, 1 of which has brought 200 people, mums, dads, aunties, uncles, but you know what? They don't fucking win because they're not good enough. It's that band over there. And trust me, I went through merry hell at the beginning because promoters didn't get it, venues didn't get it. It was, but the band slowly but surely picked up on it and went, you know what? We might not have won, but he beelined for us straight after the event. He didn't go to the winners and said, look, guys, you guys are really good. What you need to do is this, this, and this. Take it away, have a think about it, and I'd love to see you again next year. And what you do is, if you open up that dialogue with bands and give them the support and the sort of leg up, and it's worked so well over all these years. Luckily, there's been a few ups and downs, but it is what it is.
One thing I can say to that is, first of all, it's actually great. It's nice to hear that perspective from yourself, because art is at the end of the day subjective.
It is. It is.
And
I have to be brutally honest, and I had to be brutally honest from the get-go, because obviously I've got my own genre preferences in my record collection.
Yeah.
But, it's about what happens in that 30-minute slot on stage. Yeah. I am not a massive power metal fan, but if a power metal band gets on stage and entertains the living shit out of the place and noodles and just rips it up, they're the winners.
There's one thing I have, because I've actually attended some of them, obviously, as well as like playing them years ago now. It's been a minute since that, but I came to the. Which one was it? Was that in Chesterfield, I think?
Wow.
And I came to that one a couple of years ago, and I remember we were chatting at that show, and I remember watching the bands, and genre-wise, like for me personally, like none of them like clicked. I was like, this is, But the thing that I noticed is that because there's like an objective and bands are like trying to get through, they're like pulling tricks that I feel like they normally wouldn't. So it's like trying to do things with the crowd, trying to say certain things that make the crowd more entertained. So I look at that and I think, well, even if you don't win, the competition forced you to want to get better just for that one single purpose.
There is that. I've always been, that's really subjective. It's a good point, because the fact is, I don't want a stoner doom band to start smiling and throw in there, hey, how you guys doing? I don't want to hear that. Sure as shit, don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
But I've actually seen it. Seen it when you're right. They're overcompensating a little bit, and it's like, no, stop. Just stop. Yeah. Just play the riffs, dude. Just play the riffs. But it does push the bands. It does push the bands. And I kind of look at it as well as like, I kind of think, when I was a kid, the fact of the matter is I used to go into a record store or a live gig, and there'd be A&R guys there all the time. What are you listening to? What do you think of this band? Because they were the link to the record labels. They were the link to the management. Now, you don't see that anymore. So when it comes to like boots on the ground in the industry to find out what's actually happening out there, I feel like I'm one of the few people out there. I really am, that can go back to an agent and go, look, there's this band I just checked out in Brighton the other night that I know would work for your label. Go and have a look at them, and that's why we do it as much as anything else, but also to protect the promoters, the venues, and all the fans supporting it as well,
Yeah, of course. Well, I think that's great. You do have a very unique position in that, which obviously you've had to earn that, with a lot of, like you said, ups and downs and putting a lot of work in. But one thing, just coming back to it, I really wanted to get that point across as well, is that if you're a young band and obviously your music is quite personal to you, and I mean, your music should be personal to you regardless of experience level. If it's not, there's something a little off there maybe.
There's a little manufactured about it. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. But I think that even if you get rejected, that's probably good for you. Because if you constantly get yes and thumbs up, you don't really learn anything, so you don't really appreciate it, and you have to understand that the way money works in the music industry, even if you're a band that's been around for like 20, 30 years, if you did it full time, that's still not a great living wage. You're like, you would be lucky if you can make minimum wage from doing music full time. That's basically
harder today than it's ever been.
And harder today than it's ever been, exactly, because there's a lot of costs involved. If you want to do a Nightliner tour, you got to do the first half or first 2/3 of the tour just to break even.
Yeah.
And, and there's all of these things to keep in mind. And I was discussing that with Tony Dolan, Demolition Man. He was on the podcast a few weeks ago or whenever it was. And he was telling me all the
lovely guy.
Great fucking guy. I love that guy to pieces. When I met him, I was like, holy shit, if I wanted to conquer a town, this is the dude I would want to have next to me,
The legend. He really is.
He is. And he actually name dropped you when we were talking about ice baths on that episode.
Did he?
Yes. Yeah, because I do them as well all the time. But yeah.
We'll talk about them later.
We'll yeah. I want to get this point across firstly, but you have to go through the struggle. You have to go through the bullshit. I mean, I remember with Trivex, one of the first shows we ever played outside of Birmingham, because when you first formed the band, we were mainly just playing Birmingham, just to kind of like even get an idea of what playing a live show is. To me, it was crazy enough to even be allowed to play a show without having a fucking AK-47 show up like 10 minutes later, so that was already, like playing Flapper and Scruffy's felt like a fucking dream as it was. And I remember we played a show in Sheffield, and it was fucking horrible. And the promoter came out to me at the end with an envelope with like £3 coins in it, to pay for our petrol. This was like, yeah. I mean, I made even with them in a different way, shall we say? But I was kind of a little bit crazy back then too. But but what I'm trying to say, the short version of it is getting rejected is maybe not such a terrible thing for you either, because you learn to have thick skin. If you're going to be in the music industry, you need to have thick skin, because yes, your music is personal. Yes, this is a personal journey, but also there's thousands and millions of others out there who are exactly in the same position as you, so and you're going to...
Especially in this day and age, for bands to get their head above the parapet is so much harder. It's
exactly.
So much harder with the flooding of the social media space. It's ridiculous. It's incredibly hard. And you do have to have thick skin. I think you do. You've got to take the knocks as well as the praises. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, you do for sure, and it's the saying, a comparison's the thief of joy. Sometimes you just got to focus on your own journey. That's why, for us now, when we get invited to go to Italy, and then it's like all flights and accommodation paid for, and then we get a rider on top, I'm like, fucking sweet. That's great. That's still like a step above. Or with Barcelona or Germany and getting all these tour opportunities. It's like, if that was the first thing that we got, and that was my only perspective, I'll be like, no, I want to get paid more. I want to get this. I want to get that. But when you've been through it and you know what it's actually worth, that in itself is like, you understand it. You appreciate the value. You appreciate that that's a promoter on the other side of the world who's taking a financial risk for you to go on stage and play.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
I just wish the agents would think a little more along those lines, because obviously,
sure.
We deal with some of the bigger bands now, and it's just some of the hurdles with the agents is like, oh, fuck off.
Yeah. What's the most ridiculous request do you think you've ever had?
Twisted Sister, it's easy. Twisted Sister's rider was fucking hilarious.
Okay.
The catering rider was that thick. And it was so funny. And I know that they'd manifested this and put it together over years. Because it was basically, that's why God created marker pens just to go fuck off. No. You know what I mean?
Right.
It had everything from love swings to fucking, oh my God, it was
Love
so,
swings, what?
Oh, mate. Yeah, but basically what they were doing is they were just putting so much stuff in there just to make sure you read the rider. You know what I mean? But it was so funny. It really was hilarious. You know.
I mean, we did a show with Flesh God Apocalypse many years ago in Wolverhampton at the Slade Rooms, actually. I remember they had requested for pink towels and baskets of flowers, and I thought that was bad enough. But
lemon scented towels is one I had from UFO back in the day. So I took a stack of towels in with with a couple of Jif lemons on top, and said, just scent them yourselves. Why do I give a shit?
That's it.
Yeah, talking to Flesh Gods, I think that was one of the ones where there was a miscommunication. I think it was a language barrier miscommunication when they said they wanted so much CO2 for their pyros when they played Bloodstock, and they ran out after a song and a half, and there was fucking Ferrari backstage. But what they had put down as like
a Ferrari backstage.
Oh, not a Ferrari, a Ferrari. Yeah,
Italians get it.
It was kicking off like fuck. It really was. Yeah,
oh,
they ran out of CO2. Bless them. Yeah, good guys.
Wow. Good guys. There we go. Yeah. No, they're a great band. It's one of those things, I mean, for us, the rest of the band drink. I've quit drinking now, but I usually say you don't have to get me anything. If you want to be nice, you can get me a protein shake. That's it. I'm just ready to go.
Yeah. Good lad.
That's it. So I don't want to miss this since we were talking about it. But ice baths.
Fucking all the way.
There we go.
All the way. Yeah.
You do them quite regularly?
3 times a week now. I'd started doing it when I first got it. I was doing it every day. But then the winter kicked in and I was outside and I was like, fuck that. So I had spinal surgery nearly 3 years ago. And
how are you getting on with that?
It's not very good. I've got to be honest. No? This side of my body is it's deteriorating quite a lot. It's got nerve damage all the way down. And I live in a lot of discomfort 24/7. But there's, as you well know, the dopamine hit when you hit that ice bath. I have a period of an hour to 2 hours where everything's cool. Literally, everything's cool.
It's
great.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. It works for me on a sort of. It helps this a hell of a lot. Gives me a bit of clarity and gives me a couple of 3 hours of just like I'm not focusing because like literally now I'm focusing on my feet. They hurt all the time. It's shit. It's not been a nice journey, to be quite honest. And but what I decided not to do was A, feel sorry for myself, and B, sort of go down the road of having too much in regards to medication. Because it's, I still go to the gym, I still lift good weight, and I do what I can. I do what I can.
Good man. So do you mainly like train upper body then when you're going in?
No, I can still squat. I can still squat with the best of them. As long as it's lit. The worst time is when it's sedentary. As soon as you stop moving, it's like your feet are on fire. And I've got what's called foot drop. So my foot just I can't lift it up. I can't dorsiflex, as it were.
All right.
And it's pretty shit. So I wear this stupid ass brace 24/7. But look, it could be far worse. I could have lost my looks. But I didn't.
I like it.
Good
man. No, I love your attitude, man. That's fucking great. I'm happy to hear that.
What do you do? Do you curl up and die, or do you keep cracking on? It's simple as that.
That's fucking it, man. Exactly. I think the cold exposure is a really good thing. To me, it starts out because someone tells you, oh, it's good for getting rid of inflammation. It's good for recovery. And then you do it and you realize it's a philosophical journey.
It is. It really is. No, I couldn't agree more. Agree more. It's about taking a challenge, challenging yourself, getting out there. I mean, don't get me wrong, I can do like 5-6 minutes at 3 degrees, 2 degrees. It doesn't actually freak me out that much now at all. The bit that's hard is actually the motivation to get yourself out of a warm house, go and sit outside in the garden for 6 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the hard bit. But it's
motivation is bullshit, that discipline is the king.
Discipline is the word. Yeah, you do.
It was the same for me yesterday. I wake up, I'm in a warm bed, and when you still haven't put the heating on in the morning, just British problems, by the way, and I'm in on it now. Like when you wake up in the morning, you still haven't put the heating on, and you're like preserving all that heat under the blanket, and your mind is like, oh, just lay down a little bit extra. Oh, just scroll on the phone. Oh, fuck it. Keep your eyes closed. Even though you're holding your piss and you need to get out of bed.
Correct.
It's like, nope, fuck it. You get out. You go in there. Leave the tap running. Discipline. Exactly. It's an appointment. It's just like. I look at it like this, and I approach the same with the gym, with cold exposure, with all of the above. It's that it's an appointment that you have with yourself. And the more you show up for yourself, the more confident you become in every aspect of your life, So
a great way of putting it.
This is a thing that I think a lot of people... Yeah, I think a lot of people who don't do this kind of don't realize that aspect of it, But the more you show up for yourself... everyone thinks that, weightlifting is just like an ego lift or like it's just for your ego or whatever it is. No, these are appointments that you keep with yourself. The more you keep those appointments.
Body maintenance. That's what it is.
And the way I look at it is, especially, because obviously I'm a fitness coach now as well. And I've been on the other side of being extremely out of shape. I'm like 5'8" thereabouts, and
10, surely.
Yeah, it's actually 7, and don't call me Shirley. But there we go. But the thing for me is that I also have parents that kind of sign up, and then sometimes they're like, "Oh, I don't know with my kids. I don't know if I have time and stuff." And I'm like, "Listen, you wake up and go to work, and you don't even question that." Okay, why do you go to work? Well, they're like, well, because I have to earn money to pay for my kids. Exactly. Just like you have to earn financial currency, you also need to get a physical currency. Like a better currency is your health. You need to show up for yourself. You need to go to the gym. You need to look after yourself so that you can be there for your kids. So that's equally as important as you showing up and going to some office job or hopefully going somewhere that you enjoy working. But
it's kind of weird because I kind of look back, and you're so right. I kind of look back and go, prior to lockdown, prior to having the spinal fucking collapse, I wasn't all that good. I like my ale. I like going out. I like partying. And now, I still have a drink. I'm not going to deny it. But I am surrounded by people I'm incredibly grateful to as well. Like my wife, who goes out running, 3 times a week, 10K, no problem. Hits the gym. Vicky and Alan Hungerford.
Absolutely,
who I work with. I mean, Alan had cancer, for Christ's sake. Vicky's had a massive hysterectomy, and she's still training. Within a week or so.
The heavy metal lifting club, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I look at them and a massive inspiration, absolute massive inspiration. The good people who work alongside, So
absolutely,
keep lifting them, man. Keep lifting them.
There we go. That's what we do here, man. Simon, my man, brother, I won't take too much more of your time, but I really, really appreciate your time coming on the podcast, man. This has been a really great chat.
Thank you, man. Thank you. The thing is, I don't do many of these because I kind of shoot from the hip, and sometimes I get a little tongue-tied and sort of twisted up. But the fact is, I think you'll get an insight on what we're all about. And we're one of the same, you and me, without a shadow of a doubt.
I think so, yeah, I can see that, man. Absolutely. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. And listen, at the end of the day, I think that the only way that we kind of progress from these things is just to have an open conversation at the end of the day, There's only so much that you can put into a Facebook status or a comment reply to someone, That's why I think there's the value of these podcasts. That's why I keep doing it. This costs me money to do, by the way, but I do it.
There is a thing, before I go, it's just like there's a big thing that I love about podcasts in the respect that you give your interview more time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You see so many binary sort of interviews on TV where the viewer has 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes tops to come to a conformed decision on what they've just seen. But the fact of the matter is, I'd like to think that with these podcasts, people have got more time to sort of take in, the whole concept of like who you are, who I am, and what it's all about. So well done, mate. Fucking top job. Top job.
Thank you, sir. Much appreciated. And to everyone else listening to the podcast, be sure to support your local metal to the masses. Attend Bloodstock Festival. Not that you needed me to tell you that, but now you definitely have to do it. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Take it easy, brother.